Once again, welcome everyone. My name is Terry White, Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you on this Friday afternoon or morning, depending on your time zone, or evening, depending on your time zone. And we're going to do a quick one on some quick retouches that we can do to make portraits better. Now, it's not making people better. It's making the portrait, the picture better. So just correcting common things that people tend to like. If you ever saw someone look at a picture you took and they're like, I don't really like this picture. Usually it's not so much your photography, it's more about something they don't like about themselves in that picture. So just some things to just make overall portraits better, and some things to make specific instances better. Of things that could go wrong with a portrait, or in certain cases, maybe even the person, if there's something that they don't like. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my computer. That way you can see what I'm doing. I've got Photoshop already open. I've got some examples in my library, most of which came from Adobe stock. A couple of them are mine. I'm going to show you some quick and easy things to fix. One of which, I'm going to start with one that I did before on a different stream, and then we'll talk about some new ones that the rest will be ones that I've never done before. Grabbed these images yesterday and started playing with them, looking for examples of things to do. All right, so with that said, I'm also, just so you know, I'm going to be working with my Wacom tablet. I'm actually going to be using my Cintiq, which is a tablet display. So everything I do on screen will happen actually on the image itself, as opposed to drawing or correcting on the tablet and then seeing it reflected on the screen. So I'll bounce back and forth when I'm doing that as well. There's definitely one case where the tablet will really, really come in handy. But for the most part, I always tell people, no matter what, a tablet is usually better than a mouse for retouching, for drawing, for any type of art. So even if you get the least expensive Wacom tablet, it will be better than the most expensive mouse or trackball or trackpad that you can buy. All right, so Adolph, Nancy, Charlie, hey, welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with the first image, which is really just a color correction. So this is one of the things that bugs me and most photographers. When they look at a picture like this, there's a few things going on in this one. But you see like this yellowish color cast on it. And it might be yellow, it might be blue, it might be green. But usually it's like the picture itself has more of a color than it should. So in other words, this is not the natural color. And this is usually caused by the white balance setting on the camera and the lighting conditions in the room or outside even. So when you look at your camera settings and you see things where it says cloudy, fluorescent, daylight, those are white balance settings, and they're intended for those lighting conditions. So if you set the proper white balance, typically the camera will correct for this. But if you didn't do it, you can correct for this easily in Photoshop. Now, if I were in Lightroom, I would just click the white balance slider and move, or the white balance eyedropper and move on. But I'm in Photoshop, so how would I do that same thing? So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my filter menu and convert for smart filters. So this will create that non-destructive workflow so that if you make a correction, you won't have to worry about that you can't change it or undo it later. So I'll convert for smart filters. That will take the background and convert it into a layer, and it will convert it into a smart object as well. All right, so now that I've done that, I can go to my filter menu and I can come down to the camera raw filter. This would be the exact same technology that I would use in Lightroom. So when I bring up the camera raw filter, there is a white balance eyedropper. It's right there, called the white balance tool. It's the letter I on your keyboard. And when you click that, what you're looking for in your image is something that should be around 18% gray. Now I could click on the camera. The camera is probably stainless steel or some type of gray, and I can see what that would do. And that kind of does it, but it's pushing it a little bit more towards the blue side of things that I don't want. So let me undo that. And that's the great thing about this, is that if you click in the wrong spot and you don't like it, you can either just click somewhere else and try a different spot, or just undo it and start over. Now, if you didn't have anything that's around 18% gray in your image, because most of your images probably don't have a gray card in them, then what you would do is look for something that should be white or should be black. So this wall, this screen on the wall should be white, but it's not. It's got some yellow cast to it. So if I click on it, it will make that correction for me. And that's a lot less blue. So that's about right for the color cast itself. Now, if you don't like the proper white balance, you're not stuck with it. You can always go in and adjust the temperature slider. So if you wanted to cool it off a little bit more, you can cool it off a little bit more. Or if you wanted to warm it up a little bit more, you can warm it up a little bit more. You are the final judge of what your white balance should look like, so you can adjust it to your heart's content. All right, so now I'm going to click OK on that because we're not quite done. There's still a couple of distracting elements. And anything that takes you away from the subject, which is, this guy taking a picture, is a distracting element. So there's two in this case. There's one in the upper right-hand corner, that little shadow on the drapes. And then there's someone's head, I believe, down at the bottom. And those are things that, again, will take me, I keep looking at it like, is that a head? Is that something else? What is that? That means that I'm not really focused on what I should be looking at, which is the photo itself. So in that case, what I'm going to do is, you could argue, well, could you clone that out? Yes, I could start cloning his shirt down onto it and cloning the drapes down onto it, but what would I really gain? So you got to ask yourself, what's worth the effort? If it's worth the effort, meaning you need to see the rest of the image, or you need to see that much height, then yes, start cloning and start trying to remove this head. But in most cases, you can probably just crop it out. If there's no reason why you need that particular part of the image, you can actually recompose the image. I'm going to just clear all the settings here. You can recompose the image to get a stronger shot to begin with. So for example, we don't need that much back curtain. We don't need that much foreground, that much lead in. And I can kind of maybe even keep a little bit of that glow down at the bottom, but now we can get a much stronger image with reducing the headroom, reducing the stuff that we're not looking at, still giving him something to look at or focus on, which, pointing in this direction, or someone's walking in that direction. You want to give them room to walk. You don't want to trap them in the frame. And then when you click OK, that's it. So it's still slightly distracting, so I'd probably crop it some more. But you get the idea that you can, now I'm starting to still see the rest of this plant. So yeah, it probably would go ahead and crop it a little bit more. And just because it's not enough of the plant to matter, there's not enough of that head to matter, so might as well get rid of it completely. And also, if you uncheck delete cropped pixels, you will always be able to come back and recrop or readjust. So see, I didn't lose anything, even though I clicked OK. The rest of the image is still here. I can come back and recrop or undo it anytime I want. And I also still have that camera raw adjustment that I can always go back to and readjust. So that's why we convert for smart filters first. Okay, so that's number one. And actually there were a couple in there. Number one, fix the white balance. Number 1.5, recompose the image if you need to get a stronger shot. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close this one. All right, now let's move on to one that is, people sometimes get challenged by this one. So I'm gonna open it up, and this gentleman here has a broken tooth. And the tooth is going to be fixed. So in other words, the guy's, broken tooth, headed to the dentist, gonna get it fixed, likes this picture, but want it to reflect the way the tooth used to look or the way it's going to look once it gets fixed. So in this case, what would we do? Well, we could say, well, we'll just wait till you get back from the dentist and take another picture, or we can go ahead and fix this one to reflect what he's gonna look like after the tooth gets repaired. All right, so let's zoom in. And I've approached this a couple of different ways. The first time I tried this, I was like, oh, there's a good tooth right here. Just copy that one and move it over and make it fit, or, reverse it, flip it over, do all that. And yeah, I just didn't like the way that was turning out. So I actually have a kind of an easier way to do it. So I'm going to duplicate the layer just so we can see the difference. So I'll just drag that down. Now we are in the background copy. And this is where I am going to use my tablet, because this is where the tablet really shines. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my lasso tool, and I'm just going to confine my, my working area of just the part of the tooth that I want to work on. So I'm going to start here at the bottom of the tooth, and come over. So I'm basically making a new tooth. And it's okay that it's not perfect, because teeth aren't perfect. Can't say the word perfect today. Teeth aren't perfect. So it doesn't matter that my selection wasn't perfectly steady. If that was the case, I could have just used the pen tool and got a perfect line. But nope, I wanted to be just off slightly because that's the way teeth really look. Now that I've confined that area, we'll hit the letter S to go to the clone stamp tool. And then I'll just say that, okay, I want to kind of clone the bottom of a real tooth, that same right-hand side, into that area, but I don't want to go over. I don't want to go into the areas that I don't want to go in. So that's why I made the selection first. So now we'll hold down the Option or Alt key. We'll get the bottom right of that tooth. We'll come over here and we'll just start cloning. And because we're cloning his teeth, they look the same. They look okay. So we'll just come down here and fill that in. There we go. Yep, perfect. And if that, actually, you know what? I don't like that last stroke. I undid the last one because it was starting to look like a mirror image. I didn't want that. There we go. And if we hide that selection and zoom out, you would never know that we repaired that tooth because it looks just like the rest of his teeth. So just, again, never let something like that scare you that, oh no, the broken tooth, yeah, he wants it fixed. What do we do? Easy. Use the rest of his teeth to fill in, just like the dentist would in some cases. All right, so next up, let's close this one, and let's look at a lighting example. This is where we can go in and relight an image. So nice couple, they were wanting to take this nice romantic shot out by the lake, sunset, and they're under a tree, so they're not being lit properly. Now, if the photographer had used like a flash or bounced a small light off them, then that might look great. But in this case, we just don't have the case. Maybe it was a cell or a smartphone and we just don't have the proper lighting that we'd want. So in this case, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to do the same thing we did before. I'm going to go to my filter menu. We're going to go to Camera Raw Filter. Oh, before we do that, hang on. Let's convert it for Smart Filter so we can always change it. Convert for Smart Filters first, then we go to the Camera Raw Filter. And what we're going to do here instead, there's no white balance issue in this case. We're just going to go in and use, we want to imagine if we had a flash and we just illuminated their faces a bit more than they are. So we're going to switch to the radio filter. And the radio filter, I'm going to make a couple changes here. I don't want to change the contrast. Double click, put it back to 0. Don't want to change dehaze. Don't want to change saturation. The only thing I want to change is exposure. Don't want to change temperature, just the exposure. So I'm going to bring it down a bit. And then I'm just going to come right in the center here and pull out. And it's already doing its job. I can move this around and then just turn up the light. So if I just crank up the exposure just a bit, we can relight our portrait that, it would be easier to relight in post than it would be to go back out and reshoot. So properly, best to do it on the scene. Do it with the camera. Do it with the light. But if you end up with a shot that otherwise would be good, but you just don't like the light, then add more light. And of course, we can move this around. We can, see what that's really doing to the rest of the scene. So and that's the beauty of all these new cameras is that the sensors capture all that detail. Look at the wood grain in that tree. Look at the lines. It's all there. It's just dark. So we can relight a portrait easily and still keep that detail and quality that was in the original picture. All right, so again, if we click OK, that becomes a smart object, or a smart filter. So if I say, oh, I kind of don't like the way it's lighting his neck, maybe it's a little far down, I can double click back on it, get right back to it, get right back to the radio filter, click right back on it, and move it up a little bit more. There we go. Click OK, and voila. So just remember, that's why we use Convert for Smart Filters, in case you think you're ever going to need to want to go back. Maybe you print it, it's too light, too dark, and then you say, oh no, I want to readjust it. You can do that after the fact. All right, next up, let's close this one. Let's open up this one. And this looks fine the way it is, but sometimes people say, hey, can you hide my wrinkles? Can you make me not look as old as I am? That's up to you and your client, but I'm going to show you a method. We don't want to, and this is where retouching can be overdone. This guy is whatever age he is. We don't want to make him 20 years younger because that's just unrealistic. Maybe you want to make him 5 years younger, 3 years younger, 4 years younger, whatever. Just a slight, believable difference. So typically what I tell people to do with wrinkles is don't remove them, lessen them, meaning make them stand out a little bit less. And therefore that will automatically reduce the age or the look of someone's age. All right, so I'm going to zoom in and just show you what I'm talking about. So we've got all of these wrinkles and the crow's feet and all that stuff going on here. And I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that layer once again. And in this case, on that layer, we start by doing the thing I said don't do. We start by getting rid of all the wrinkles. So we can do that a couple of different ways. And you'll see why we're going to get rid of all of them when we're done. So we can go to the patch tool, for example. I can go ahead and start patching them out like so. Patch does a nice job of blending in. And you're saying, well, Terry, you're doing what you told us not to do. You're making this look unrealistic. You're taking away all the wrinkles. But bear with me. It will work out in the end. Because we're not going to leave it this way. That's the point. So we can go ahead and just reduce, or we're going to just go ahead and take all of this away and make it look like, oh yeah, right, his friends are going to be nodding, sure, that's you. And that's not what we want, but it's what we need to do to get to what we want. So let's go ahead and and again, you would just keep working, keep removing, keep getting rid of everything that looks like a wrinkle. So same thing there. And I would come over here. I'm not going to do all of this, but I would, come over here and reduce all, or get rid of all this too. That was a bad one. Hang on, but that's okay. We'll bring it back. Don't worry. You have to watch the skin texture, and I'm doing a bad job over here because I'm not maintaining that skin texture. But let's just go ahead and do this. So the patch tool in that case probably wouldn't be the best thing. Again, we're just making this guy look so unrealistic. But trust me, it will work in the end. All right. Okay. So now, and let's say let's go back to this. Hang on one second. Just let me get a brush here. I'm just trying to bring some of that texture back to the way what it should be, which it should be more of this. Okay. All right, pay no attention to that mistake. But anyway, let's say you get it all the way down. You get everything gone, and now it's unrealistic. Well, the whole point, and it looks good, but the whole point is that that's not realistic. He would not have, he would, at this age, all of his wrinkles would not be completely gone. He wouldn't look like he's 16. So once you get rid of all of them, keep in mind you did all of that on the extra layer. So you still have that layer underneath, or the background underneath, which is the original. So we're going to take that layer that we got rid of everything on, and we're just going to lower the opacity. I would say start at like 50% opacity. And what you've done there is you've reduced his wrinkles by 50%. You didn't get rid of them. You just took them away. Now, again, that slider is up to you. You say you want to lower the opacity to maybe 40% as opposed to 50. Maybe that looks more realistic to you for your subject. But see, look at the difference that made, especially under the eye. We didn't completely take his age away, but we certainly made the portrait better by just reducing the amount of age that got captured in a still high definition frame that we would normally not pay attention to in real life. So you adjust that slider to taste. You get it, again, you don't want to be at 100% or anywhere that high, but maybe somewhere between 50 and 40% is going to be your sweet spot depending on your subject. Go a little higher maybe. And again, before and after. So if I had gotten rid of all of this on that same layer, which I still could, because it's just going to use the same opacity, I could do that. So let's try it with, there we go. So I'm just reducing it because all it's doing is, I'm getting rid of them, but all it's doing is showing me the layer underneath. All right, there we go. All right, good. All right, you get the idea. So whenever you want to, reduce something, reduce it, don't remove it. All right, next up, let's close this one. And let's go to the kid here. And parents say this all the time. I wish he was smiling, or wish she was smiling, talking about their own kid. Because the kid's looking serious, looking like, nope, not going to smile no matter what. Well, we can change that. So let's go to, once again, filter, convert for smart filters. Once we do that, we will go in and go to the filter menu, and we will come down to liquify, because Photoshop has now, and has for a little while, face aware liquify. So that means it's identified that there's a face, and it can do multiple faces, but it identified that there's a face in this image. So we can go in and we can say, what tool was that last one? That was the spot healing brush. We can go in and say, for example, literally there is a smile slider under mouth. So if mouth was twirled up, you could twirl down mouth, and there's a smile slider. And all we got to do is just give them a little bit of smile. Just make them smile just a little bit, not over the top. So this was before and after. And we can make them frown. We don't want to do that. But we can certainly just make them smile a little bit better. All right, so and let's say that wasn't enough, because sometimes you'll hit one of these sliders and you'll be at 100%, and you're like, God, I just wish I can go like 5% more, 10% more. What do? Well, click OK. That will give you that 100% of the one you did, and then just run it again. Don't run liquify again. Just literally go to the liquify filter again. And now you got a new slider to start with. So you can go to smile once again. It will pick up where you left off, and we can go a little more, because that's too much. That starts to look really, really phony. So just a little more than what we had before. Click OK. And now you've got those two adjustments. So no smile versus a little smile versus a little more smile. There we go. All right, so now you're saying, well, wait, Terry, there's a little speck of dust or something in his eye. And you notice that I can't use the spot healing brush or anything. That's because this layer has been converted already to a smart filter. But if I double click on it, I'll get back to, like, it just went into the layer that I can now adjust, the original. And so I can go in and say, yeah, it's got a little bit of white, white dust or eye dust there. And just go ahead and take those out, because they were distracting me, so I'm sure they're going to distract his parents. And now we can go ahead and close that, save it. It will return it back to the Smart Object version, and we get the white spots gone, but we keep the smile. So that is just so going to make your cat smile. Antoinette, I don't know if it works with animals. I don't know if the face aware liquify works or identifies animal faces, but you can certainly give it a shot. All right, with that said, let's go ahead. Yeah, but you could always do it manually. So if it doesn't recognize the face, you can certainly use the brush and do it yourself, which, as I speak, we're going to do that next. So this is the one that I cringe at, because I know what I feel like when someone takes a shot of me from the side. Don't ever do that. If you send me a photograph of my profile like this, it's going straight to the trash. I won't say anything. I won't complain. I just will never show or use this picture again. And unfortunate, it has got a belly. Some of us do. So like, we don't like pictures, profile pictures like this. So rather than throw this away, what can we do to kind of, again, you're not going to make him a bodybuilder overnight, but can we get rid of 5 pounds? Can we get rid of 10? Can we just make it a little better? Yes, we can. But here's the problem. Normally when you're doing something like this, if it were on a white background or an empty background, easy, piece of cake, no problem. But he's standing against a pole or some structure here that if you tweak this, you're going to mess up the pole, and it's going to be obvious that we tweaked it. And that's even worse, is that someone uses a picture that's obviously been retouched or everyone can see, oh, you made your stomach smaller. We see where you did that. So what do? Once again, filter, convert for smart filters. Once again, filter, liquify. And this is what I mean. So if we were to grab the warp tool and we would make the warp tool bigger and we would start pushing it, see what happens to the structure. Like we could do it, sure. We can make his stomach smaller just a little bit, maybe take 5 pounds off. But then you got this pole that kind of like bends in a weird way that's kind of a dead giveaway that you did something. So we're gonna use a secret feature inside of Liquify. Let's go ahead and reset that. Cancel. All right, let's go back in. Filter, liquify. And we're going to use a secret feature. We're going to go in, and before we warp it, before we move it, we're going to go all the way down to the freeze mask tool. We're going to hit the letter F. So when I go to the freeze mask tool, what I'm going to do with that tool is I'm going to use my brush, or I'm going to use that tool actually. And I'm just going to go in and freeze all the stuff that I don't want to move. Even though I'm not going down that far, and even though I'm probably not going to go up this high, I don't want to take any chances. I don't want any of this. And you could paint all day long. You're not changing the photo. I'm just telling it, don't mess with anything in red. So I can go all the way over here. I can go up here. I can come down here. I can get really close. And I can say, don't mess with any of that red stuff, because then it would be a dead giveaway that we changed something. So it's called the freeze mask tool. And we're just, certainly don't have to go over this far, but just in case. We're telling it, don't mess with anything in red. Okay, now that I've done that, we will switch back to the warp tool. And the freeze warp tool is the top one. We will make the brush bigger, because you usually want to make it as big as the thing you're trying to move. And now we can just go ahead and just say, no, God, I just wish I could get to the gym more often. Just lose a little bit of weight. Maybe this will be inspirational to him when he sees that it's not as bad as it was. There we go. Just a little. Again, don't go all the way in. That's unrealistic. No one's going to lose that much weight overnight. But just a little. Just so it's not so bad. And you can even go up a little, maybe on the belt, move it up a little bit. There we go. Okay, that's not bad. Lost maybe 5-10 pounds. All right, we click OK. And the structure's still in place. Everything still looks the way it did. And again, this is the before and the after. Okay, maybe 10-15 pounds, but you get the idea. I made it a little bit more extreme than you probably would, but you get the idea that you can quickly and easily do that, especially from those profile shots that we hate when you take them, because we don't want to look like this. All right, or just don't take a profile shot and then we're good. So with that said, I hope that you got something out of these 6 things to make portraits better. So we did white balance and recomposing. We did fixing the tooth, we did wrinkles, we did relighting a photo, we did making someone smile, and we just reduced a bulge in the photo. And again, you decide how much bulge you want to reduce. That's up to you and your client. All right, Michelle, glad that was super helpful. Yes, SC, I'm using my Wacom Cintiq, my secret weapon, my 27-inch QHD. All right, and cool, glad you liked it. Could have worn a cat, yeah. Thomas, thanks. Antoinette, sorry, I didn't mean to crush your dreams. Yes, it will work on your cat. Absolutely, 100%. Do it. All right. And with that said, I think I am good to go. So thanks everybody for watching. Hope you have a great Avengers weekend in the U.S. And if not in the U.S., have a great weekend anyway. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for watching. We will catch you on the next one. Bye.